Hi and welcome to the show. My guests today are the dynamic founder of the organization Peace One Day and its high-profile ambassador. Both have an amazing passion for bringing peace to the world and using their fame to make a difference. Both have acting in their blood and are also great friends. Jeremy Gilley and Jude Law, welcome to The Scoop. Thank you both for coming.
Pleasure to be here.
Really appreciate it. Jeremy, start with you. Professional actor for over a decade. What made you move to documentary making, and specifically the Peace One Day documentary?
Yeah, well, I read a book that talked about the responsibility of media. And I thought to myself, well, you know, that's my field. I'm an actor, so maybe I can use the camera in a positive, constructive way. And I was concerned about what was going on in the world. I was frightened by the violence that's going on in our homes, communities, schools, and between countries. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to make a film about peace. And then when I was going through that process, I realized there was no day of peace. There was nothing that united the world. There was no moment of global unity. There was no moment of intercultural cooperation separate from politics and religion. And that fascinated me, and that was when I had the idea. Could I make a film about trying to create the first ever day of peace with a fixed calendar date voted by every member state of the United Nations and established
Why do you think there wasn't a day of peace before?
Well, actually, funnily enough, there was, but it didn't have a fixed calendar date, and that's why nobody knew about it. So our job was to make that day have a fixed calendar date, but more importantly, call it a day of ceasefire and non-violence, a day that actually asks people in our homes, communities and schools and between countries to stop fighting. And of course, that documentary was called Peace One Day. You're welcome to show it on your channels, and it was a great journey.
Challenges in making and funding the film?
Yeah, massive challenges. I mean, you know, I knew.
Was it self-funded initially?
Yeah, I mean, basically it was me and my friends. We would hold nights of poetry, or you know, we would beg, borrow, and steal. British Airways were giving us all our flights. Kodak were giving the stock. Panavision were giving the cameras, and it went on and on and on. So you know, this process has really become a reality because of the goodwill of absolutely thousands of people. We're here today because you know, everybody has been supporting, you know, this journey to establish a day of peace, and then see lives saved in Afghanistan, and now, of course, as you know, 1.5 billion people probably being aware this year.
Jude, as one of the world's most successful actors, what made you join up with Jeremy on the Peace One? Did you know each other before?
Yeah, we did. We knew each other. We've known each other 20 odd years. We met through mutual friends. I became aware of his filmmaking, and specifically aware of this adventure, crusade, whatever you want to call it, that he was on. And once the day had been created, along with many other people, I wanted to know how I could help. And it's actually documented in one of his his second film. But I went along to do some clips, sound bites, awareness videos for his website, and was simply asking where he was going next. And he had just decided that, having created the day, he wanted to see whether the day worked. And the conflict in Afghanistan at the time, it was about 2006 this was at its height. And there was an opportunity to take the program, the organization to Afghanistan and try to inspire a day of ceasefire there in order to encourage an inoculation program. And I happened to be free, and I showed some interest in going. And off we went. This was 2007.
It's not, I mean, you must have been really good friends. I mean, Afghanistan is not a place you kind of on a whim decide, well, I'm going to go to Afghanistan.
Well, yeah, good friends, but also I was, you know, like so many people are when they engage in this organization, and indeed with Jeremy, I was inspired, I was moved by it, and it seemed to me if it was safe enough for him, it was safe enough for me. And I like the idea of using film, which is obviously a world I'm involved in a different way, using it as a positive medium to educate, to document something life-changing. And the time we spent there had an incredible effect. We managed to, I think, reach out and really inspire a lot of the different warring factions in the country. A huge inoculation program took place because of that trip. It happened again the next year. Jeremy very nicely asked me to come on board as ambassador, and it's been the most positive thing in my life, really, for the last 7 years.
Both of you have a lot of pressures on your time. I'm sure, Jude, you support a lot of other causes as well across the continent. What keeps you in particular, coming back to Africa? Because you have had other projects here in the past and have supported other causes. What's the time, when the first time you came to Africa, what was that like, and why did you have this love for the continent immediately?
I like things that remind me that I'm alive. And I feel very alive in Africa and the countries I visited in Africa. There's incredible beauty here. There's an incredible sense of reality here. And there's obviously, there's a harshness, there's a brutality, but there's also a great sense amidst that of hope. And it's why I think it's so exciting that we're finally doing, alongside all the events that we've been doing for many years, a concert in an African nation, because it sort of embodies all those things that I've just mentioned. It embodies, the reason we're here, the reason we're trying to create something positive and hopeful is because of the dramas and the tragedies of the past. But we're trying also to shine a positive light on a country, to demonstrate to the world that there's so much more to this nation, so much more to this continent than just what you might read in the paper about the horrors. But every time I've been here, I've always left feeling more humane, more human, and more in touch with who and what I want to be.
Jeremy, your first time on the continent?
I think I've been to 27 African countries now. I've spent the last 16 years, much of my time on this continent, and I think
what got you?
Well,
Africa?
it began. Obviously, I've been to African countries, but when I was in Somalia, right at the very beginning in 2000. We launched in September 1999, and in the beginning of 2000, I was in Somalia, and I spent some good time there, and I saw some things that I never, and smelt some things that I just never knew existed, and it shocked me to the absolute core of me, and it made me never want to give up on trying to do anything that I could which might make a difference, even the smallest difference. And Africa gave me that gift, and I love it for that, and I love coming back. And I have to say, actually, that in Africa over the years, we've seen things go on in every single country of Africa. And the African Union, have been instrumental for many, many years and pushed it very hard. Meeting figures like Mandela when I did in the early days. This is an amazing continent. It has so much to offer the world. And right now, on Peace Day, it is leading the world on the only day of peace that exists. Goma, DRC, is leading global celebrations. That's a great story.
We'll be right back with Jeremy Gilley and Jude Law talking about the power of media in Africa. Stay with me. Hi and welcome back. I'm here with Jeremy Gilley and Jude Law. We were just talking about, you mentioned earlier, Jude, about the image of Africa. Jeremy, you talked about using the power of media in order to get the message out for peace one day. The media has not often been kind to people in the public eye. Both of you have experienced that yourself. What are your thoughts on media in Africa and what kind of an impact it can have on changing the image of the continent? We're still seeing, my father filmed the 1984 famine, and it was his pictures that triggered that, probably the largest single act of giving ever. But Ethiopia is still seen by many as a country of famine, especially for those that have never been there yet. It's one of the fastest growing economies in the world. So what can African media do to change it? We can't rely on the West anymore.
To me, there's a really simple mistake that is made, and it applies to several things. People around the world, but let's talk specifically about Africa, are always doing positive things in their lives, to stay alive, to give hope to each other, to love one another, to care for one another. And obviously at the same time, all around the world, and in Africa in particular, they're also doing awful things to each other. But we know that the world media tend to concentrate on all the atrocities, the terrible things, and not the positive. Now, what we do, we haven't yet seen, unfortunately, an absolute eradication of all the awful things. That's why we're still striving for one day of peace. But what we hope to do is to encourage the media, and we need the media to do this, to shine a light, even if it is just for this one day, on the positive, to say, look, amidst all this awful stuff that we know about, that we read about every day, look how people can also behave, look how people can also treat each other, look how people can also celebrate something that we all know we need Otherwise, why bother? Which is a hope for a peaceful future, a hope for a peaceful childhood for someone. So what would be great is if the African media could do something that the Western media doesn't do an awful lot, which is embrace the positivity. You know, we're not saying, oh, there will be no violence on this day. We're saying there'll be a massive reduction, and that's really, really good. And let's record that, and let's tell the world about it. Because like you say, you know, you live in, I don't know, North America, you live in Europe somewhere. A lot of what you read about Africa is about, oh, this atrocity, this genocide.
Yeah, it's famines, wars, HIV, that's all.
I come here and I've seen nothing but, you know, fantastic things too. I mean, there's a balance. But you could say the same about, you know, London where I live. I see awful things, I see wonderful things. It depends on where and what you want to shine your light on.
But not many African journalists come and cover stories in England or in the US. And
No.
this is, again, part of the problem is that we don't have that global presence that we should do. Jeremy, from your side, in terms of media on the continent, you've 27 countries you've been to, you've seen the atrocities committed. So as media, we're not saying that there is all good in this continent. There's a lot of bad here. How do we balance that story out?
You balance that story out by making a choice to balance it out, and it's as simple as that, isn't it? And I think that, you know, on a personal level, I can't speak for the media of the world or the media of Africa, but on a personal level, you know, I chose to use the camera in a way that was constructive and that I hoped would inspire people, but I also wanted it to engage and, most importantly, kind of entertain and tell stories that people wanted to watch. Now that's a tricky thing to do, actually. And I'm delighted that over the years, with the support of the BBC and the support of Jude and our good producer friends, you know, we've been able to create movies that have sold all over the world. So I think it's a choice. You have a choice to in your everyday life and in the work that you do, to use that energy in a constructive, positive way.
And every event you've had music, you've had a concert. Why is music such an important factor with Peace One Day? Why did you choose music as opposed to art or you know, a conference or a debate with world leaders? Why music?
Celebration.
Yep. I think that you know, music music is an incredible way of shining a light on the successes of Peace Day and the things that people are doing. You know, I mean, really early on, you know, it was very apparent to me that getting the message out of the extraordinary activities that were taking place on the Day of Peace needed to be known by people, because of course that's what inspires us to become involved ourselves. And you know, obviously your father ignited one of the greatest concerts and songs of all time, and I'm a part of that. I grew up with that. I was actually at Live Aid in Wembley and watched that concert, and so I think we all know that it's a great vehicle, and we use it as one of the mechanisms to raise awareness of the Day of Peace. But what we see at our concerts is the concerts are also there to call people to action and to very much illustrate the thousands of activities that are going on the day. It's a lighthouse, and it shines an enormous light that can be seen by many, many people. It's a great vehicle.
Jude, any personal thoughts on music from your side?
No, just that, you know, music is often a direct route to people's emotions, to people's hearts, and alongside all the activities that go on around the world, it's just lovely that the organisation also has a focus every year of celebration, that it is a party also celebrating this day and the achievements of the day and the attitude and energy of peace. You mentioned art. I mean, what's been interesting is in the time that I've been involved, the 7 years, yes, we have concerts. They tend to move around the world. Sometimes we have 2, 3, 4 going on at the same time. Obviously, this year we've been in the DRC, but we also have art campaigns too, where we involve artists from around the world to make pieces that are inspired by, on the themes of peace, usually involving decommissioned weaponry. And we've seen some wonderful work in that field too. So the effects and the ways in which we celebrate and mark the day are also, you know, spreading and broadening.
We'll be right back with Jeremy and Jude. Stay with us. Hi, welcome back. We're here with Jeremy and Jude Law, and we were talking about peace and the importance of peace, and Peace One Day. Going back to the youth, we've seen massive movements of young people. The Arab Spring was a very good example, but again, the chaos that caused, it's not always, the youth doesn't always have the answer in terms of going forward. Egypt is in probably worse state than it was before the Arab Spring. Libya is in a worse state. Now you've got wars coming out and conflict coming out in the Ukraine and other parts of the world. Does this put a downer on the work that you guys are doing with Peace One Day?
No, I think it makes
When
it
you
more
see
exciting.
more conflict?
No, I think it makes it. That's the very fuel. I mean, the mountain climber who climbs the mountain, when it's tough and you fall down because there's a lip you can't get past, you don't go, well, hey, I'm never going to climb that again. That's exactly why you want to climb the next day. Those are the challenges. That's what life's about. Failure is everything. Failure is when we learn most about ourselves and each other. And that is the fuel and the ignition to us climbing and believing that we can get to the top. We have to believe. That's why the mountain climber ultimately gets to the top, because they believe and they never give up, and they'll always try to get past that hurdle that is seemingly impossible. That's the fuel. And that's what young people need to know, that your failures are in fact your successes. And actually when somebody says no, it's when it becomes most interesting. And I think that Peace One Day education materials are very much about that. Your failures are when you enrich yourself. So never give up on the idea of making peace a reality, because if you give up, it will never happen.
I think also you've got to remember we live in a world which is speeding up. We're used to everything being quick now, answers, responses, information. But mankind takes time. Change takes time. So, if things don't happen immediately, if someone doesn't change immediately, if you don't see effect immediately, don't give up. It doesn't mean that you've got to get a faster, connection. It means you've got to be patient. And patience is something we're all losing touch with because we live in a world that it's like this. It's too fast. And this is a great area to learn our patience and to take time and remember that, you're right, there were incredible youth-led shifts and changes around the world in the last 5 years. I still think the world's better for them. Are they resolved? No, they're not. Will they be resolved in the next 20, 30 years? Probably. And they wouldn't have started without the Arab Spring or whatever it may have been. But it takes time. Things do not happen overnight.
How would Africans learn from the success of people like yourself? What are the lessons that you would like young Africans to look at from your lives and say, one, you can do and achieve anything you want. Peace One Day was something, Jeremy, that it took you a long time to get to where you are now, and you never gave up. It's simple as that. Is that the lesson for young Africans?
I would never assume the role to be able to tell anyone what to do other than be yourself, be true to yourself, be civil to others and treat others as you would have them treat you. That's all I would ever say.
Yeah, one of the greatest inspirational figures of our lifetimes, of course, is African, Mandela. And this continent's inspired the entire world and its individuals. And so, I think that we must all look at these examples. We see it in our daily lives. We see it with our families. We see those we love make great strides. We see our children do extraordinary things that give us a total, love of life. And I think it's all around us. I think we've just got to see it. We've got to see the positivity and those wonderful things that occur. And that's what it's all about. We can see it differently. We don't need to see what we're shown. We can choose our own window to look through.
Favorite places for you guys in Africa? Since we're talking about positive things, what are your favorite spots?
Well, I've had the opportunity to go all over the DRC. And, it really is just one of the most breathtaking, incredible, resourceful, inspiring countries that I've ever been in. But there's so many parts of Africa. When I think about going deep down south into southern Sudan or, parts of Kenya and, Somalia and South Africa on the beaches. Africa has it. Africa has it. And I really hope that it continues to make incredible changes. Some of the countries and the achievements that have happened that are not being discussed are really incredible. Of course there are issues. Nobody's ignoring them. But the continent's beautiful and its people are amazing. And I love being here. I mean, love being here.
Jude, favourite places for you?
Well, every one of the countries I've been to, I have a favourite place. I don't feel like I know DRC well enough to mention one yet. I'm just very excited to explore it and get to know it better in the next 3 years, coming back. Very excited about that. I had the most extraordinary journey from Rwanda through to here, and that was a new gem and a new inspiring experience here. I've had great times in Kenya, and on the coast there. I've had great times in Tanzania. Like you were saying, I mean, it's a continent rich with experience and wonder. And every time I come, I think I said before, I leave feeling more human and more. My senses are on fire when I come here. You know, you feel like you're hearing, smelling, seeing more than you usually get to see. It's a continent of riches.
The future, what's next? Both of you have achieved incredible things in your lives. What's next for, Jude, let's start with you. What's next for you in terms of the next great adventure?
Well, my adventure with this fella and the organisation is coming back to the DRC and broadening the bedrock, if you like, that we've put into place this year and achieving something bigger and better and brighter next year. We've got a film to edit, which is going to be about how all of this came together. And then I'm doing a film in London with Colin Firth. So I fly back there and start filming in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I'm totally focused. What next for me? Completely focused, and don't want to look at any other mountain to climb apart from the one that we are doing in the Great Lakes region of Africa. And this year, really bedding into the region through everything that we've done on the 21st September in the DRC. So that's my focus. The ultimate target is to make sure that 3 billion people are aware of this day in 2016, to see incredible awareness through the Great Lakes region of Africa and a lot of action. And that's the challenge, that's the target. It's really clear that the organisation is very focused, and I hope that we'll do a really great job. And certainly, if you'd have told me when we began this campaign that in Peace Day 2014, these would have been the results that we achieved, I would have thought, well, if we achieve that at the end of 3 years, I'd be pleased. So we're in great shape. The Buffer Foundation is very happy. And so that's the focus. The Great Lakes region of Africa is the focus. I want to be a great dad. I want to be able to teach my little daughter something that will, guide her and give her some direction that will help her to make sense of this world and enjoy it.
Jude, could you say it any better?
No, not at all.
Gentlemen, the show's called The Scoop. I know it's really hard for public figures like yourselves to give me something.
I thought I just gave you one.
Not at all was not a scoop.
About a film I was about to do with Colin Firth.
Not at all was not a scoop. No, the film.
A bigger scoop than that.
The film. We can always Google. Yeah, Google's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
Something that Google doesn't
Lord.
tell us about Jude Law, about Jeremy Gilley. Something that you can share with us about your life, about things you've seen or heard or people you've met.
Come on.
Well, yeah, it's very difficult, isn't it? I mean, I think that, I think for me, in terms of, talking about things that are very personal, I think, it really, ultimately comes down to love, and it comes down to my daughter. And I think the scoop is that, for me and my life, it has meaning because of her. And I think that's it, that's the scoop, man. That the passion and the drive is based on a little human being that I love dearly.
Jude, final word?
He keeps besting me on all the answers. It's really hard to follow, isn't it? I should have gone first.
You should have gone first. I did offer it to you first.
I'm going to have to think of something really mundane and small now, because I can't top that. Right, I can't think of anything. I live a very very simple life. But I think, what a scoop. I really
play golf. Do you? I mean, yeah.
Do I don't play golf. No, I mean, I like. Funnily enough, he was talking about mountains. I love climbing. And actually, I climb with a mutual friend of ours, who sadly hasn't been able to come with us on this trip. But he's absolutely right about what he said about climbing. If you give up every time you slip or fall or can't make a reach or whatever it might be, you will never get to the top. And that's why I keep climbing. Also, it's the only place I can ever go where I don't think about anything else, because all you can think about is your next move.
Thank you both. And that's The Scoop with Jeremy Gilley and Jude Law. Join me again next week when we'll be talking to some more great personalities. From me and the entire team of The Scoop, from Goma, Democratic Republic of Congo, thanks for watching.
Great.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Jeremy, thank you
Well done,
so
man.
much, man.
Oh,
Thank
dude,
you. Really appreciate
pleasure.
your
Oh,
time.
loving it. Well, thank you.
so
No,
much.
but seriously, thank you.